Welcome to Beyond What You See, the space where we look past titles, past resumes, past surface level success to uncover the journey, the purpose, the experience that shape who people become. Today's guest is Kenyatta Sinclair. She's the Chief People Officer at the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. But before leadership roles, before the influence, before the impact, there was a young person navigating opportunities, uncertainty, and possibilities right here in Milwaukee. So this is a full circle story, and today we're going beyond what you see. Before we talk about where you are now, I want to go back because there's so much of your story to where so much of your story began. So can you start with just telling us growing up, in the city of Milwaukee, just tell them about how did you get here, some things you remember from your childhood and your family.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee is home, and I love this city, and has have seen it kind of go through many stages and phases, and um, even when folks have things negative to say, Milwaukee still holds a special place in my heart, and I'm committed to continuing to work in community because that's what others did for me. And so I grew up in what is now considered Brewers Hill neighborhood. And when you talk about full circle moments, the building that I work in now, the Thrive on King building, is in the neighborhood I grew up in. So
Wow.
I've seen this space transform from the Gilbert Schuster department store to, at times, Coakley moving and storage had the space. Times it was vacant, and now to see um, this beautiful community jewel be restored and to be able to come here and work is definitely a full circle moment. Um, I remember, downtown and its many transformations, and catching the I think it was the number 19 city bus going to the Grand, and even back when Woolworth was in downtown, and
Wow.
so so I love this city, and so much of who I am has been shaped by my experiences, not only in the city, but family and teachers and church members and just folks who have embraced me and provided such a rich opportunity for me to learn and grow from them. And to be able to do that, even when things weren't always the best in the city, to do that and still feel safe to be a young person, I honor that.
That's great. That's great. Can you tell about just growing up schools that you went to? What elementary school, middle school did you go to?
Well, now it's called Carver, but at the time it was called Henry L. Palmer
Mm.
Elementary School. And so that was right in my neighborhood. And then I went to Samuel Morris Middle School, which also has a different name now, but Samuel Morris Middle School at the time was for the gifted and talented. And from there, I went to Rufus King High School. And then I went to Mount Mary, which is now Mount Mary University. At the time, it was Mount Mary College. And then from there, I went to Concordia University and obtained my bachelor's there. And then I obtained my master's from Cardinal Stritch. And when Stritch closed, well, my master's and I did my doctoral work at Stritch, and just through different circumstances of life or things that were happening in life, I did everything but dissertation. But now I'm back at Carroll University to complete my dissertation. Hopefully, to be able to have that done by year end.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's
Yeah.
really great. Dr. Sinclair.
Yes. Loading.
Absolutely. And sometimes the role may vary. And sometimes
Yes.
Speak to that, right? Speak to somebody that may be going through steps. They maybe they started in Brewers Hill or started in NPS, and they may not be believing in themselves. What would you say to the younger version of you?
Yeah, I would tell myself, and I probably have told my, self, even telling this to my children, that our paths are not linear. Nobody's path is just a straight shot, even for the best planner. And I'm a planner. We have to be open to change, open to being nimble and flexible around when circumstances happen because life will happen. And
Mm,
if we're too rigid and strict around just sticking to that original plan, one, we may miss opportunities, but two, we may inadvertently stop ourselves from being able to do what we plan to do because we're so focused and probably distraught on being derailed. And so don't let being derailed stop you. Always look, take the pause and say, what do I need to learn in this moment? And even not just with education, but that has happened in career, personal life. What do I need to learn in this moment? What do I need to take accountability for as an individual, and what do I need to let go because I have no influence over that? So the key through all of those twists and turns in life to me has been create the pause, think about what needs to happen in this moment. Even if you just do what's one next step instead of trying to always figure out the whole picture, has been something that has kept me um, calm enough and lucid enough, if you will, to be able to say, all right, just let me figure out what's the next step. And I've found that that has always worked well for me.
yep, great, thank you. What's the next best step? What's the next best on purpose step? What's the next best step that's gonna tie you into your purpose, your why you
Yeah.
exist, why you've been placed on this earth? So speaking about purpose and your why, what's your why? What's
Yeah.
the thing that gives you passion, that wakes you up in the morning, the things that you're so passionate about? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that my purpose, my why is that I was not here to waste any moments.
Mm,
The God given time, talent, treasure, and testimonies that I have through lived experiences matter not only to me, but they have a purpose for somebody else. And my goal is to always be in a space where I can be open to connecting with those I'm supposed to intersect with to make sure that my assignment is fulfilled, but also we're interconnected. And if I'm not at my there, if I don't fulfill my why, I could be impacting somebody else's purpose and why. And
mm,
so for me, it's about waking up knowing if I woke up, there's something for me to do.
mm.
And I got to be about the business of doing that. I don't want to leave this earth holding on to anything I was supposed to distribute.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I don't know if y'all heard her. She talked about time, talent, treasures, and testimony. Sometimes
Yeah.
people just think they just got time.
Yeah.
We do have time and it's valuable. You can either spend your time or you can invest your time.
Yeah.
Talent, gifts, talents, and abilities. Everybody's been given a gift, talent, or ability. I don't care. You should try to look at somebody else because there's some unique things that's been given to you.
Yes.
Time, talent, you said treasures, and then you
Yeah.
said testimony. Your life,
Testimony.
your story is a testimony. Speak to that.
Yeah. Like we call it lived experience. At
Mm,
church, we call it testimonies,
mm,
right? And the Bible says we're overcome by the words of our testimonies. And I know that through life, hearing other people's lived experiences, their testimonies, their narratives have helped and inspired me. And I'm like, how dare I not offer up what I've learned, you know, experience can be a good teacher. And my mama used to say, you know, you don't really want to have a bought lesson. And
Mm,
to me, that really meant to me that learn from other people. You don't have to pay for that lesson if you can listen to other people and you can hear their stories, to hear their experience. But I was a little bit of a daredevil, so some stuff I'm like, I want to learn on my own. And I'm
mm.
like, that was a lesson I really didn't have to. I didn't have to experience that if I would have listened. And so there is such a gift in sharing your stories and your testimonies, but it also is something that I've counted that as a gift to not only hear other folks' stories and testimonies, but to be able to share mine and to help not even just young people, sometimes peers, sometimes even people who are more seasoned and in the wiser community have been able to learn and be inspired from testimonies that I've shared.
That's good. Going back to your story, middle school brought you to Marquette Education Opportunity Pre-College Program. Do- Can you talk about your experience here? Can you talk about the Mr. Ingrams and Dr. Foss or people, things that you remember? So let's go back to what do you remember and what stayed with you?
Um, I remember all of you. I remember thinking at the time that, Miss Foss, I mean, she was firm, but I knew she cared about us. Mr. Kevin Ingram, who I still keep in contact with, was just so pivotal. I felt like he had a nice mixture of kindness and concern, but also he was motivating and pushing us. Like, you gotta get this done. He was. I felt like there were times where I'm like, you want us to be very serious and we're just kids, right? And so I feel like that maturity over my time in the Upward Bound program, being chosen as one of the first students who ever participated in SAM, the Science and Mathematics at Marquette program. Those were opportunities that shaped me. You, as one of my counselors, who you would stay honest. You made sure we had a nice mix of fun, exposure to experiences that you know sometimes children in the inner city did not have opportunities to be with. But we felt I could say I felt safe and I felt cared for. I wasn't afraid to be away from home. Really, at we were staying on campus at 14, 15 years old, right? Um, in a city where we're in downtown Milwaukee, but because of the community of adults who, all of our counselors, all of our administrators, we felt safe, we felt cared for. And you all also taught us that you know rules matter, right? Like, and if you follow the rules in this situation, you're going to have so many opportunities. And so I learned a lot about discipline in how you show up in your work ethic, in your studies, in
Mm.
your experiences, and that not not necessarily assimilation, but also knowing that you don't want your character or your behavior to be in question in a way that it you self-select out of opportunity.
That's great. So you talked about that warm demander, Dr. Foss, Mr. Kevin Ingram, Alex, all of the people that was down here. A lot
Yeah,
of had that warm demander,
yeah.
big care, nurturing, but high expectation. Or
High
nowadays
expectation.
they call it care rigor, having the care but having some high standards and some rigor that go with that. And
Mhm.
and that's key. That's key. We talked about it was safe. We had a lot of we had students from back then. It was 6 states that were down here, and
Yeah.
in the upper bound math science program. That's what they call it now. But Marquette,
Okay.
we called it science and mathematics at Marquette STEM.
Mhm.
But I don't know if you knew, but during the summer you probably didn't. But Jeffrey Dahmer. towards the middle of that summer, that's when it broke. The story broke, and he was probably about 8 blocks down the street, and we had all these students here, and we was trying to, you know,
Yeah.
really invest in an experience that would change their lives. First generation income eligible students from around the city and the area. Many had greatness and potential. We wanted them to tap that potential, and we also wanted to keep them safe. But did you know about the story of Jeffrey Dahmer while you was going there and ever thought about it? Right, it was actually about 8 blocks down the street.
So not at the time, no, because and I will tell you, when I started to like reflect back, we had so much stuff going on. Like, I mean, you all kept us engaged from the time we got up until the time curfew happened. That I mean, I just thought that was, and I don't know if it was intentional, but like that wasn't even something we thought about. Even when I went home on the weekends, I was always like, okay, well, because I'm such in this rigorous program during the week, I'm not thinking about that. I'm trying to catch up with my friends, right? And so it wasn't until probably the end of summer where I'm catching up and I'm like, wait, what? And so people are telling us like this been in the news and this and this. And I will tell, I will, when I reflect on this, I had no clue any of that was going on during our time. That's that summer, because the summer consumed us in a good way. I felt like it was just something where I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything outside of the program because it was so robust and organized in a way where we were still allowed to be children, and we were children that were talented and gifted, and we met those expectations because the bar was set for us. The bar was set high, and we wanted to meet those expectations. And I don't feel like I any of my summers in Upward Bound and in Sam, I don't feel like I missed anything. I just had catching up to do when I came back. And I'm like, that's horrible. Like, what do you mean? And my people around me were like, you don't watch the news? I'm like, no. Like by the time we get back to the dorm, we're ready for bed. Like
Matter of fact, back then we didn't even allow TVs to be brought. So I get it.
yeah,
You know, the,
yeah.
the other thing is thank you for that, and you make us proud. So
Thank
you're definitely a role model, a living witness. Your testimony of the power of belief and the power of nurturing, the power of trio works, and the power of everybody's gifted and talented with potential inherent inherent in them, and with some love and kindness and some belief and some exposure. The sky's the limit. Can you talk about today? Your current title, I believe, is Chief People
officer.
Officer, right? Can you? I was going. Can you tell and speak to that, right? Well, what is a Chief People Officer? What do you do in that role, and why does that connect? Why are you passionate about that role?
It's a lot of things, but I usually my one liner is it is all things people.
Mm,
It is benefits, it's hiring, it's firing, it's talent, it's culture, it's development, it's making sure that folks come to an environment where they feel cared for. It's looking at policies and compliance. It's all those things. Anything that impacts people uh, is under my purview.
wow.
And so that's important to me because I believe in taking care of people. I always say to people, even when we onboard people, I said, make sure people know when they walk in the door that we planned for them to be here,
Mm,
that we're excited for them to be here. Don't scramble around at the last minute looking for a computer or a monitor. We want people to feel like we welcome them and we plan with them in mind. And so every employee engagement, every time we're going to be able to engage with, we want our staff to know that we plan from them. For the flavored water machine to um, the type of furniture we have. Like, I want people to know that they matter, and that
Mm,
having the attitude and forethought to know, even in our policies, even in our compliance, even when we look at health insurance renewals, what do we want to make sure? We want to keep costs affordable. We want, so all of those things, even though there's a lot of, complex stuff behind it, it's all things people.
mm.
So anything that's going to impact our employees, because we know what impacts them impacts their families. And so I always see it as this responsibility that even though I may never meet all of our employees' families, if I'm doing right by them and doing the best I can for them, it's having a ripple effect.
Right. Thank you. Can you speak to a quote or a principle that you live by? That, your favorite quote, your favorite principle that you want to share with somebody else. What would that be?
Um, I have a lot of favorite quotes, but I've lately been just doing a lot of reflecting on my parents and grandparents, and uh, I'll be 50 in July. So this has
Mm,
been a this is like a major milestone. So I've just been kind of looking over my life, and one of the things that my grandma used to always tell me is to be found working. And I say that's what is top of mind now, is because most of my career has been because I was curious, and
mm,
I would take on stretch assignments, and I would ask questions, and I would just do what I know I could do and what was right to do, even if I wasn't being paid for it. And
right.
so most of the opportunities that came to me have come because I've just been found working, doing what I know is right to do, being curious, and not always looking at the monetary piece of it, but that thirst for knowledge is something that came from me being in Upward Bound, being like, we that curiosity has always stayed with me, and it has played, a big part in how I've been able to ascertain these opportunities. And so that's my biggest thing: always be found working. And another way, my mom would say it, you know we're here to serve. And that's what I think. Even my world now, my our employees are who I primarily serve, right? Like, and I don't see that as a negative in any way, shape, or form. So be found working, be found serving is are those are my two big ones.
Wow. That's great, right? Servant leadership.
Yeah.
Servant leadership. So think about, January we celebrated Dr. King's birthday. Also January was National Mentoring Month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speak to different mentors in your life. I know your mom, you talk about your mom and your grandmother a lot. You
Mhm.
speak to other mentors that had impact. Maybe it was an elementary teacher, maybe it was a high school teacher that had an impact that stand out, point out and recognize, shout them out, and tell us why you still remember them and they had an impact on you today.
Okay, let me see. I just told you I'm gonna be 50, so I'm trying to go back. But I remember my third grade teacher. Her name was Miss Virgili,
Hmm.
and she was probably that I can remember one of the first teachers um, who poured into me in a way that I don't think I even realized. And so
Hmm.
I remember her, giving me, I would always finish my work really quickly. And, at first I imagined she was like, "Well, is this work right? How are you done already?" And so she would check it. And she's like, "Oh my goodness, you're already done." And so we went through this a little while. And so what she started to do, and I mean, obviously she knew more than I did. um, because she knew I would finish my work. She started like already having little extra assignments and ways for me to be a helper, right? And so I would finish my work, and but the way she would help me, she would say, "Well, okay, you can do this, this, and this, and this," and the reward would be a book. And that
Mm,
like opened up my love for reading, because then she started to give me like books that were in a series. So I would start to read one thing and I'm like, okay, is there more? And so she was one of the first people who taught me that, being a reader and loving to read opened up all these possibilities. And so what I remember about her, she would give me books that were about different places and stuff, and that kind of fed my love for travel,
mm,
right? So
mm,
she opened up, this little girl living in the city who, you know I would go down south, but I wasn't traveling by plane or anything like that, but she was the first person to do that, and also to let me know that still be, you don't just finish your work. What else can you be doing? How do you use your time wisely? That used to be one of the lines on the report card. You would get graded on how you if you use your time wisely. And she
mm,
opened me up to books, and to this day, at work right now, I keep a book with me. And now, with the advent of audibles, my library is so I set a reading goal every year, and it usually is 50 or more books a year,
mm.
because I'm a reader. But that started in third grade with Miss Virgilli, Miss
That,
Trotman, my fifth grade teacher, but she
mm,
also was a friend of my family. She had a long time. She had taught. She taught my dad. So this
mm,
is how though she knew us, right? And so she was not going to let us get away with anything. And she would tell. And she would, like I said, she was friends with my grandma, and so she never let. She didn't give us any slack. She was like, "I know you can do this." She never,
mm,
and she took us when they used to have the Christmas parade. We had a little drill team squad, and
mm,
she's the person who I never thought of that. Like, teachers picking you up on the weekend. And so she would pick us up and make sure we got to the parade. We performed in the parade. She would bring us back. And so I just think about people who just didn't, they never let up on me. I don't care what other kids are doing, not you. I'm thinking I want to go outside and play too.
mm,
Nope, it's this opportunity for XYZ. And they knew about these opportunities, and they saw something in me. And I would, they would, and she would, she would make sure she would let my mom and grandma know. So
mm.
in case if I said no, she well, I think Kenyatta would be good for this. And so here I am in another program, in another opportunity, and sometimes other kids that kind of have them feeling some type of way.
Absolutely.
you know
But the richness of those stories that you just
yeah,
shared, right? Those experiences. One is the reward for good work is more work.
yeah,
And reading opportunities and
yeah,
exposure, which open doors of opportunity. That's
yeah,
that's what a care rigor is. That's what
yeah,
a warm demander is. So, man, it's so great catching up with you. Beyond what you see reminds us that where you start does not limit where you call to go. And
it's so
Kenyatta's story shows us what happens when opportunity, purpose, and people come together. And when young lives are invested in early, intentionally, and consistently. Thank you for joining us. And until the next time, keep looking beyond what you see.